Yeah.
Robert, if you were having a dinner party, would you have a different wine for the starter and then for the main course and then for the dessert?
Yes.
Why?
Oh, yeah. Well, look at it. You've got mushrooms here to start with. If you have the same wine through, it just gets flat, doesn't it? I mean, you want to match that food with that wine.
It becomes an expensive dinner party, though.
It doesn't have to be. No, it doesn't have to be. You could buy very good wines at very reasonable prices.
Tell me, what would this bottle of wine cost us?
This is around about the £7 mark.
Oh, perfect. Laura, £7.
Yeah, we've established in previous weeks that I'm quite frankly, I'm quite cheap when it comes to wine. My price point's having to go up slightly. I was a £4, £5 kind of girl, but unfortunately the cost of wine seems to be going up. £7 is my limit, quite frankly.
£7 your limit.
And I think really, current economic climate and everything, I don't know if people want to spend more than that on a bottle of wine, do they?
Yeah. There are good wines which are at the £10 mark. I mean, there's a value point as well in wine, which I think Nick and I are going to talk about a bit later, that you get to a break point of what the wine costs compared to what you're paying to the chancellor and what you're paying to the bottle maker and the person who prints the label. So at a certain point, round about the £6-7 mark, you're actually getting better value wine.
How'd you find the wine, Laura?
Yeah, I like it. Nice.
You like it?
You've made producer Laura very happy because you've brought in a wine that she likes and that is below that magical £8 threshold. Time for some more music. Barney, it's time for your second track. Aretha Franklin, Daydreaming. Why is daydreaming music to cook to? What's the story behind this?
This reminds me, I was lucky enough to work in France when I was 19. I worked there for 6 months, but I'd just fallen madly in love with my then girlfriend, now wife, and this song reminds me of that time.
You met your wife when you were 19?
When I was 19.
What a great story. How old are you now?
I'm now 36.
Did you meet her in France?
No, I met her at school.
You met her at school, and
yes.
And this was so you went to France when you were 19?
I went to France when I was 19
with your wife.
Without my wife, she was in London. I was in France. I worked in a 2 Michelin star hotel. Had the most fantastic gastronomic time. We were picking wild herbs from the forest, and the rest of it. But I was lovesick for my wife at the time, for my then girlfriend at the time, and this song reminds me of that time.
Poor Barney came in to talk about food, and now he's having to talk about his life story. But it's a lovely story. This is Barney de Mazri's second song for the evening. Music to cook to. Aretha Franklin, Daydreaming.
Times are cuts we should be using more of. I'm sure we're going to prove with your belly of pork.
Emma, would you cook with beef cheeks?
Yes, I would. Yes,
and
have done. Yeah,
these are cuts that go into that come out of fashion and will go back into fashion. When I started cooking 16 years ago, butchers would give you lamb shanks. Now you have to pay about £6, £7 each.
Yeah.
And if you knew what a lamb shank was, you might not want to eat it either. It's the lamb's ankle, ox cheek.
What goes into this stew in 30 seconds? How do you cook it?
This stew is a classic braise, like a beef bourguignon, but I've spiced it up slightly with a bit of star anise. Star anise is absolutely wonderful for bringing out the meatiness of a stew. So we've just got a classic mirepoix. Mirepoix is carrot, onion, celery.
A mirepoix.
Mirepoix, which is carrot, onion, celery, some bay, some thyme, some red wine. I've thickened it with just a little bit of flour, and I've braised it for 3 hours.
See, here's the surprise. You catch me eating some. The star anise, the star anise, wow, that really does something to the stew. Emma, would you have thought of putting star anise in a simple red wine stew?
Yes, probably, because I think the thing as well, it's different when you run a restaurant, that I always say that if I go out to eat to a restaurant, I wouldn't want to have anything that I could eat at home. But obviously it's slightly different with me being a chef. But then that's what we want to do for our diners.
But star anise is an oriental spice.
Yeah.
Why would you put that in a classic French dish?
Well, I just think nowadays there's so many different things that you can do, and why not?
It's a seasoning. It's a seasoning like salt and pepper, and it brings out peppers. Pepper's not homegrown peppers in exotic seasoning, and it brings out the meatiness in a dish. It's something I picked up from Heston Blumenthal programme, where he put star anise in spaghetti bolognese. I tried it, and I don't cook with beef. I don't braise beef without adding star anise.
Well, regular listeners to the show may remember that we had top chef Jean-Christophe Novel Kelly in week 3 here on the Three Counties Kitchen, and he told us he was going to make a tomato sauce, and we were quite worried that was going to be quite dull, but of course his tomato sauce was fantastic, including star anise, and it really lifted that tomato sauce from a simple tomato sauce to something quite special. Robert Steele, our wine expert, how do you find Barney's ox cheek, or dare I say cheap cut of beef
Cheap
stew?
cut of beef, absolutely fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And I do like the star anise, and when I cook at home, do casseroles and actually spaghetti bolognese, I put a little bit of star anise in. It just gives that meaty punch to
It
the.
really does.
Yeah,
Yes,
And
lovely.
Yeah, and I've got
delicious.
hopefully an interesting wine to go with it.
We're going to taste that in a little while, actually. I would think it would be quite a difficult thing to match to, actually, because
Yes.
for me, I'm tasting this here. This is a really, really rich stew. It is delicious, Barney. I will give you that. But there's so many layers of the flavour. Is this thyme I can see in it as well?
There's thyme,
So
there's
it's
bay.
The thyme, the star anise, the red wine. It is really, really full flavoured.
It's a very it's sort of a mountainous region stew, and if this was cooked in Italy, it'd be beef and Barolo, and it wouldn't be any different. Or Amarone,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
Well, we are going to be tasting Robert's wine. Tell me briefly what you've brought in. We'll taste it in a minute.
a Salice Salentino Reserva, 2006.
Would it be a surprise to you if I say that means absolutely nothing to me?
Means nothing to most people.
We are going to be tasting that during a real track from my teenhood, from my childhood. We're going to be listening to I've Had the Time of My Life, Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes. When we come back, we're going to have more food from Emma Gilchrist. We're going to be tasting her slow-cooked belly of pork. First, here in the Three Counties Kitchen, we haven't done belly of pork yet. And Emma, another cheap cut of meat.
Yes. I think a lot of people are put off by pork belly. They always assume it's fatty, but hopefully when we try it, you'll agree that it's delicious.
It's cut snobbery, because people are
Yes.
put off by pork belly, but they'll eat streaky bacon. It's the same thing.
Tonight, here in the Three Counties Kitchen, we have developed a brand new term. Barney de Masry, food editor, BBC Good Food magazine, cut snobbery. We're going to be, Robert Steele likes it too. We're going to be tasting Emma Gilchrist belly of pork, and we'll see whether we're suffering from cut snobbery or not after I've had the time of my life, Bill Medley and Jennifer Warnes.
Now I